Hello everyone, welcome back to the Oak Island Research Channel. It's been a while. I missed you, and I've been working a little bit on the French channel, as you may have seen. Also working a lot for my company, a lot of time. So I didn't have much time to do research, but something fell off the sky. Not exactly because I asked for it, but sometimes when you ask for something, it happens to all our benefit. Let me explain you. Of course, this is my slide about fair use of material I don't use for YouTube research. And why is it a gift from the sky? Because, you know, those miniatures I'm working on from the Rochefoucauld Grail, you know the story now if you've been following those videos. This Rochefoucauld Grail manuscript, at least 3 of the books out of 4 composing it are in private hands and have been bought at the Sotheby's auction back in 2010 for £2.4 million, and we don't have access to it compared to the other material dealing with the Round Table and Camelot and the Knights, which are available in British Library, French National Library, etc. And one of the 4 manuscripts of the Rochefoucauld Grail is divided into 2 booklets, sub-books, and half of the number 4 is held at the National French Library and the other half at the British Library. But the 3 main books, from which we only have a couple of photographs, like 9 photographs that were shot for the auction, and that reveal already in 2 miniatures major hints about Oak Island, the journey, but also the vaults under the earth, as you've seen in past videos. One of the problems we have is, since they're not accessible, some of them are in very poor quality. And I must thank Professor Alison Stones, whom I first email, then second email, then a text message in English on her US phone, then a text message in French on her French phone, because she's got a house in France. And then last 3rd email saying, I won't bother you anymore, but please help me. And she finally helped me. As you can see, part of the Lancelot Grail project, which is a project initiated by the University of Pittsburg in the US, who's trying to compare in those different books of the story of the Grail and the Round Table, the miniatures that were used for the same chapters. So they had access at one point in time to the Bibliotheca Philosophica Hermetica, who used to own the 3 volumes of Rochefoucauld Grail that interest us before they got sold by the Bibliotheca Philosophica Hermetica to private owners at that auction. And her name was here, and I could find her email, and I wrote her, and later I found through the University of Pittsburg both French and US phone numbers, and I text her. And Mrs. Stone, which you can see here in the middle, who I learned she was awarded from the French Cultural Services of the French Embassy in the US the title of Chevalier of the Order of Art and Letters, which is not nothing. You must be dedicating a good chunk of your life to French culture to receive such a reconnaissance, such an acknowledgement. Maybe someday I will, with all my work on those miniatures on Oak Island, but probably never. But this is the lady, this is the professor, and I thank her so much for giving me this. So this miniature is found on the website. Let me show you from the website where we originally got it and why is it in such a poor quality. Let's have a look. Let's try Lancelot Grail project. Here it is, University of Pittsburgh. This is the first page. And if you go to, I click all the links. So, so where is it here? I think it's this one. No. It is Projection par super demo objective imaging. Is it this one? No. We're not gonna do them all, are we? Selectors model. No. Archive funding comparative page. Is it this one? No. That's the comparison where they were looking for the same. Where is it? For God's help, please help me. Where is it? Anyways, it was one of those pages. It's just a pity I just can't find. Let me quickly browse all of them. That's funny because Yes, this one. Okay, so that's all we had at the time. That's this page, because they take this page as an example to explain their own work and how they worked out. And this is the best we could have, meaning if I zoom this 20,000 times, that's the best we're gonna get, which is poor. And that's what we used to have here on the left, and that's what I worked with originally. And then she provided me this picture. Actually, she didn't. She provided me that picture, which looks the same, but it was taken with a super high-res camera. Check this out. If I zoom, and I zoom more, and I got so much detail now available that I didn't have before. So incredible. I finally managed to get my hands, I'm probably the only one outside of Pittsburgh University who sees this, and you are too, with a lot of detail. For instance, the letter, we know by the text, the lady was bringing a letter to Arthur before his departure. Now we can see much better, and you see how much I can zoom in now. This is too much pixel, but this is great. So thank you, Professor Stones, because you're providing us material of much better quality to work with. Of course, I would dream to have the 120 miniatures, but I came to understand she didn't have much time for me, and that's pretty much all I was going to get. But I'm so excited, and it's already great. So we can see here on the right hand side the bird that she didn't see. I tried to indicate and show her that bird system, that bird image. She didn't see it at first, maybe she did later. And when using this new material now, I found two things that I couldn't see on the first miniature. One thing is the shoes. Again, if you look on the shoes on the left, you don't see much, but here it's obvious that this shoes are different from this one you don't see, this one which is the compass, and those two. Why are they that different, and why is it could be important for us? Look at it. They've been crossed. They've been meshed like a grid. And here on the left, no more grid. They're plain shoes. So now that we know this is most probably the story of a 4-step journey to Oak Island, we know the journey starts in continental Europe, then there's a hop on to England or Ireland, then Iceland, and beyond Iceland, it's unknown territory, right, at the time. So maybe, and I think that's what it is, those grids, the mesh, represent on-grid travel in areas you got maps and it's been charted before. That's what I think are those, maybe a representation of longitudes and latitudes in the known world. But as soon as you go beyond Iceland, which is stop here, this stop is Iceland, and you're starting your long journey across the Atlantic next to Greenland, and those shoes are uncharted, ungrid, out of the grid territories. That's what how I interpret the difference between the shoes here. One thing I've noticed, and I'm just trying to see as I comment, you see here, they removed the color. The color of the cloth should be orange, and at this level they didn't paint it, though it is still part of the cloth. I'll investigate more. I'm still discovering a lot now that we got high-res definition. All right, so that's one thing that, again, I got this picture just 4 days ago, and I'm only starting to deep dive into it. But this was one obvious thing we missed from the low-quality picture. The other thing is here. Remember that black shape here, and that black shape has been painted. It's not a lack or missing paint. It is on purpose because the background is a leaf of gold. So there's no dark area in the leaf of gold. They had to paint black. So it's on purpose. And you can see that little tit there, that little thing goes up from his cloth. And what we see here is at the back of this shape, you got where their faces and hair are meeting, leaving a black space up there. And that we couldn't see in the low-res picture on the left here. Even if I zoom, we didn't have that's the here it is. So you see here the mesh, the grids on the shoes you can't really see, and here you don't really see here what's happening. You know, they're all looking at that shape. When we take the high-res picture here, it's a much better quality, and we now see much better what's happening. And this black shape is again something interesting for us. Let's browse through the PowerPoint. So this black shape, what I did here is I took the eyes of the character and I come to realize their eye glaze, what they're looking at, is revealing the hints we found in this picture. Not at the bottom of the picture, not about the counting days system and mechanism to count the distance, but on the top. So for instance, this lady on the right, and what I did is I did not just try to understand what they were looking at from their face and visual. I really just joined the two dots that were making the eyes and looked where they were pointing. So the lady with her two eyes is looking at, or the eyes make the line of the first arch of the vault. The gentleman here looks obviously also at the first arcade here of that first stretch of journey, or the second stretch of the journey. So they show you the importance. That's what I think, that's how you should read it, I think. They show you the importance of what they're looking at. And those arch, which I think, and I don't think I revealed this in the US version of the video a long time ago, but since I thought of it on the French version, and the emphasis about the importance, and when we look at this here at top and wondering what it is, again, I think these are duration. And the fact it's not the same signum, one is horizontal, one is on the side, I think these are months of journey, M-O-N-T-H, and these are weeks. And what, so here we go again, weeks, and here we would have month. So what does that would mean? Well, we know by the bottom part how long they stayed at sea. At sea, they stayed so many days, but they stopped at their departure, and they stopped for fixing the boat, healing the wounded, and having the supplies. So they stayed sometime a bit more. They didn't land one day and departed the next day. So what we're seeing here is the journey at sea, but here is the journey overall. And if my convention of month and week is correct, because this first arc is on land, it's in continental Europe, you haven't hit the water yet. You can see it so much better now that your water starts at this one. So here is continental Europe probably, and it took 3 months, 1 to 3, for whatever to be transported to the port where they took off. Took them 3 months. Here it took them 4 weeks to go from probably France all the way to Iceland, right? Because this food is Iceland here, it's the second stop. So the journey took 4 months, and it took that distance at sea. So they probably landed in England, as I showed in the video in the first version, landed in England, and then they went by walk, by foot, over Great Britain to northern Scotland, and probably embarked near the northeast tip of Scotland, according to the directions, because this direction gives from northeast Scotland to Iceland a straight line with this bearing. So what I'm saying here is it probably took them 4 weeks from their first landing, or first departure actually. If you look at the arc corresponds to they were inland, because the sea journey starts here according to the waves, and it took them 4 weeks, 1 month, to make it from France to the top of northern England or Scotland. And then from Scotland they went to Iceland, and this is the second journey from Iceland to a point near Nova Scotia, probably Newfoundland, and it took them 3.5 weeks of the journey. Now we know the journey is all at sea, 100%. They didn't stop. Maybe they stopped 1 or 2 days in Greenland for fixing or for, again, supplies. But globally, how many days we've got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 days. And they're talking about 3.5 weeks. So 15 days is 3 weeks, right? No, I'm talking about business days, sorry. It's 2 weeks and 1 day. So they probably stop 1 week or several days, not in a one shot, 2 days here, 1 day there, probably on the Greenland shore for fixing or for supply. But the order of magnitudes match. They're talking about probably 3.5 weeks on top, and that's why they got a half. That's why this one is only half of one, 3.5 weeks, when at sea they spend 15 days, obviously, right? And now, in Mahone Bay and near Oak Island, how long did they stay? According to the convention, 3 months. That's what it kind of hints us on how long did they stay in the area. Was it to build Oak Island? Was it to do something else? But they stayed near Mahone Bay for probably 3 months doing their business, whatever business it was. Okay? So the two people on the right-hand side, let me do it this way, it's quicker. They are looking at those arches. Two people are looking at them. 1 and 2 to show the importance. Now what about King Arthur? King Arthur is looking at the hands. He's looking at the hand of this gentleman because the hand system is what is telling us the bearing, right? So this is important. So he's looking at the hand here, and the queen is also looking at the hand here, trying to make us understand there's something to do with those hands. And interesting, the eye, 1, 2, 3, and 4, they align. Maybe not the fourth, but the 3 first do align to the same line. Interesting how they put it. So they gave us the arc hints. They gave us the hands hints. Just follow the eyes. Next guy, he's looking at the queen, or rather, he's looking at the crown. Oops, sorry. And the crown we know is the boat, showing that it was a trip across the ocean. And that was a very, very important hint. So he's giving us the hint there, looking at those crowns, that guy. Now the other guys, the 3 on the left here, I always thought from the blurry image of the low-res picture we had that they were looking at this black shape. Well, they're not. Very interestingly. He's looking at, again, he is looking at, so you could think his eyes are looking this way. Right, fair enough. But I'm using the same convention, which is put a straight line between the eyes and see what it looks like, which is kind of more geometric way of showing you the important points. It is showing you the 155 angle. 155. Could be 154 actually, because the thumb is kind of inside, but it doesn't make much a difference of 1 degree. You'll agree with that. So 145, 154, 155 is okay, but he's looking at those hands as another hint. Now those two guys here, which I thought they were looking at the black shape, they're actually not. I'm gonna repeat this. You see, if I draw those lines, they're above the black shape. They are looking at, let me zoom. Can I zoom? Excuse me, this one, yes, zoom is here. Here, let's go there. Okay, and let's move those arrows. There we go. And you can see that they are both looking at this place, which corresponds to the mouth of what that black shape could be, maybe a river. And it doesn't seem it's important to them to look at the black shape here. It's important to them to look at this very precise spot that you couldn't detect with the low-res picture. So let me go back a couple of times. Oh my gosh, I gotta go back that way. Ridiculous. Okay, here we go. So let's go back to our picture here. So those, I moved everything now. Bummer. Give me a sec. Just have to reload it. Doesn't matter what I'm gonna do. The important one was the last guy, and I can do live. Oh, it's still there. So the last guy, let me get to him, even though those one moved. The last guy, he's looking at something else. Look at his eye. His eye is here, right? And I can only guess where he's looking at because one eye is missing. But I believe he's looking at this spot right here. And this spot right here, you can tell me I'm dreaming. This is just a hair. But when you'll see the couple of slides coming up, you might agree with me that they make attention. They want you to look at this part of the picture, actually. Let's go further. So, as you can see on the left, I now reproduce. Look at the weird beard this guy had. This guy's got a beard with a missing part. Let me do it again. Let's do it this way. This card, and yeah, if I move this, oh, that's not this one, it's that one. Okay, you see his beard? It's going up and down again. Strange beard, huh? And of course, if I reunite this as it was, what I did, and I also paid attention to the little, let's call it them the titties here, or whatever you want to call them, and just taking this shape, when you look on the right hand side with the photo of Mahone Bay, you're not that far, right? You're not that far at all. They didn't have Google Earth, but they pretty much shaped the back of Mahone Bay. Chester is here. Chester is here. And you got a big Tancock and little Tancock Islands. Isn't that what they represented here and there? Could be, could be. I'm still believing this is what they did. I still believe so. So very interesting now that we have full details. Much more interesting. What about the river then? I'm going to open a parenthesis with this book by Michael Bradley, which is called Holy Grail Across the Atlantic. Extremely interesting book to read if you're keen on the Oak Island mystery. But it's very controversial. What he puts in his book, it's not scientific proof all the way through, if you know what I mean. So this idea is that Sinclair made that trip to Oak Island, settled a castle at New Ross, and went back after a couple of years on site to Great Britain. On the way to Oak Island, he found that island Islandia, which doesn't exist. That was a video of mine, or maybe it existed and it got sunk. But Bradley here, I wouldn't bet my salary on putting down what he says is true, but nevertheless, there's some interesting things that he writes in there that are worth some investigation. So this is New Ross here, excuse me, and Oak Island is there. Let me sip a drink. It's very hot in France at the moment. Okay, so Oak Island's here, and you can see New Ross is there. And very interesting, the Gold River, where they found gold, there was a kind of mini gold rush. The Gold River you can take all the way to New Ross. So you get a river navigation mean. Think about it. You're coming to a land you don't know anything about. You're in 13 or 1290 or 1300. You still believe there could be monsters, dragons, and things like that in there. Unexplored land. Would you rather walk to New Ross if you had to go to New Ross? Walking meaning encountering wildlife, maybe local inhabitants that were not very friendly? Or would you rather take a mean that you're very acquainted to because you just crossed the Atlantic? Wouldn't you rather do it on a river? First, you can use the river flow, stream. Well, here you're going against the flow because this is the high elevation and it goes down to the Atlantic Ocean, but nevertheless, you would feel more secure on a boat, on a river, than walking through unknown wood and land. So maybe at the time, exploring, I would, and they probably did, privilege rivers for exploration because, you know, rivers brings you back to where you started. So actually, today we would see the river as more dangerous, but actually at the time it could have been much safer. And maybe at the time, 1,000 years ago, it was wider, more practicable. I don't know. I tried to look for hydrographic studies of Nova Scotia and how the river system worked out. I found some very interesting information, but nothing about what was supposed to be the river looking like 1,000 years ago. but you got a practical way of going from Oak Island basically to New Ross by a river system. And in New Ross they found this. It's a place called La Croix, the cross, and the foundation you can see here, the foundation could be the one of a castle. Now when you look at the dimension, it would be a very, very small castle, but if you think of it, who would have built it? Sinclair and a couple of men, so we're not talking about a workforce of thousands of people there. May have they used Micmacs to help them? Maybe, but equipment, tools, etc., it was pretty rudimentary, pretty gross. So is it a castle? They don't know what it is. They thought it is. And there's lots of websites and articles and Facebook about the supposed Sinclair castle at New Ross at La Crosse. They're even thinking that the side of the castle match with Oak Island, at least the direction. But funny, hey, you see the river here. Of course, next to the same river, the Gold River, or the extension of the Gold River. So there's a debate. There are questions about, is this a castle or not? Was it created by Sinclair on his trip? His local name would have been Glooscap. That's how they were calling Sinclair in Micmac. Was Oak Island a way to reach the mouth of the Gold River and then go up? Isn't it what they're trying to show us here? So let me go to this picture again here. They're looking at, they're really looking at the mouth. They're not looking at the black part, they're looking at the river, if it's a river, which I believe they are trying to show us this, the river. And this gentleman here on the left is looking at this top mark here. Is it the castle? Is it a representation? I don't know, but it could well be. Let's have a look at what not Michael, but this Michael, what he says about this. So quite a lot of reading, but it's actually very, very interesting. I've stressed the village with the castle, I'm starting here, is in the middle of Nova Scotia. So here's the map, and the cross is here, indeed right in the middle of Nova Scotia. And this is the Gold River at the bottom. All right, and Oak Island is here at the bottom also. Before we go to the northern part, which is also interesting, let's carry on. It is in fact on the watershed between Atlantic-bound rivers and Fundy-bound rivers, the Bay of Fundy with the Courant de Monstre, the monster's current, measured to be one of the strongest tide current in the world in the Bay of Fundy. The Gold River leads from it to enter the Atlantic at the town of Chester in Mahone Bay and the famous Oak Island Money Pit. The Gaspereau River flows from this same watershed, but it flows westward to the Bay of Fundy. So here, this river on top, which also lands at La Crosse, the cross, is called the Gaspereau River. Gaspereau. Mouth is another canal. I'll get back to this. Let's move on. So, here we have Oak Island. Would you believe there's another island named Oak Island here? I never heard of it before reading this book, and actually didn't believe in it. So I went to Google Earth. And I was so surprised, and I don't know if you know this, but we have our Oak Island right here. Okay, Chester Bay, Oak Island, no problem. But if you go, New Ross is in the middle. And if you go on the other side of New Ross, so the Gaspereau River would lead you, here it is, Gaspereau, here. And you would go down, 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 down. And if we zoom, 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 we can see the river continues here, and they must have been away, or is it here? Gaspereau, sorry. Here, you see the stream going down, joining lakes, one lake after the other. You go down this lake, and slowly but surely, you can reach, or here you go north, and fall back down, 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 and you would reach New Ross here, by the northern streams, which you don't see much on satellite because of the forest and how dense it is. But if we go to a more classical map, we got here Mahone Bay again with Oak Island here on top, and you can see the Gold River here. The Gold River is going north to New Ross, no problem. And from New Ross, it seems you get here, you're lacking it, but there must have been maybe back in the days a way to catch the Gaspereau River, which is here on the right, and you can see those little stream of water fainted here, not anymore, but maybe at the time. So that's one route to reach the Bay of Fundy and the Minas Basin. The other one from Chester would be to go through the East River, and you can see the Panuke Lake. And I wish the Panuke Lake connected with all those lakes to reach the Chester Basin, because once you're at Panuke Lake, all the way, it goes all the way to this place called Saint Croix. Saint Croix meaning Holy Cross. And one of the last village in Nova Scotia that kept its name in French, Holy Cross. Maybe they translated, maybe we're talking about the cross, maybe not. But there was a famous battle here, and this is actually a dam here, but it connects to that Gasper River and the basin. And why is the basin important? Because in Avonport Beach, right there, if you zoom, you have something named Oak Island, which is not an island anymore, but it used to be an island. Let's see on Google Earth. It's in the 50s that they joined it to the land because it was a very fertile area. So here, right here, at the top here, Avonport Beach, if I zoom down, all of a sudden, Google Earth will remember, well, it worked yesterday here, Oak Island in the middle, you see it. Fascinating, isn't it? I didn't know there was 2 Oak Islands. And what's even more fascinating is they are positioned on both sides of Nova Scotia, with the center point being the castle, if it's a castle, at La Crosse in New Ross. And as the author says, if you look here at the island, past the island, take a right, follow the river. Past the island, on the right, follow the river. Interesting, like a marker. And why wouldn't you go by boat? That's a boat. On the other side, to reach that island, if this Oak Island was the one so important. For 2 reasons. First, the current, the tide current. Those ships are not modern ships that can pretty much go wherever you want them to go. If you're against the wind, against the stream, against the current, and against the tide, you're just going to go backward. So it could be the easiest way was actually to land here and with the river system get to the second island. If you were to hide something, maybe this was the atterrissage point, the downfall point from the ocean, but you would hide your stuff there. And your middle passage would overlook both, would be like a lock, locking anybody who wants to go to this island, locking the view. I mean, you would be in control of what's happening. Interesting, huh? 2 Oak Islands. What does he say? He says, it's merely another coincidence that oak in Celtic is duir, which means both right and door, like those islands where the right-hand side doors before you enter the river to La Crosse and the castle. So a lot of searchers interested in that castle at the cross think the treasure is not on Oak Island, it's at the cross. I don't know. Let's carry on some more investigation. So the 2 Oak Islands, both off mouth of rivers, leaning inland to the castle, certainly provide the necessary navigational help. Interesting, huh? What does he say? Body of water. Oh yeah. Just like our good old Oak Island, the Oak Island in the Bay of Fundy is also named Oak Island because there are oaks on it, and it's the only island in that body of water to have oaks. So it was named by the settlers, and again, acorns don't float. So how did the oaks come to growing on this island? They must have been planted there purposely, on purpose, purposefully. And long before the earliest known settlers in the area. So, where is the mention about it later, about Champlain? But that's another interesting fact. It also had oaks. That's why the people call it Oak Island. But how did the acorns came on the island when it was in the island at the time? That's here. In checking all records, we found that Samuel Champlain was struck by the artificial-looking nature of the oak groves when he explored the Bay of Fundy in 1600. He noted that they were planted as if for the pleasure of man. And Champlain is supposed to be the first known European explorer in the region. Who planted those oaks? They were there before Champlain. And they were planted. So either natural coincidence or geographic position were coincidental. His theory is that the two oaks and the castle in the middle work in resonance, which is interesting. I'll let you read. You can pause and read it. What else do we have? Yeah, the Celtic word for oak is, so it means door, it means right hand, it also means royalty or divinity, which kind of resonates with our story a little bit. Interesting, isn't it? Very interesting. So when you overlay now what's in the picture and the map that he's providing, which is an okay map for working on our side, you can see, why did I move it? I shouldn't have moved it. It was well positioned. First of all, very interesting is the nose of this gentleman totally absorbs the map drawing, but it could be just a coincidence. Huh? It could be just a coincidence. Another coincidence is the eye of this gentleman here. Well, another coincidence, maybe, but it just goes this shape there. Okay, maybe it's coincidence. Let's give up on this. What is strange, nevertheless, is they're showing. Let me move this. Maybe easier for you. So here, at the end of Mahone Bay, this is the Gold River, I think, or this is the Gold River, G, and this is the middle. They call it the Middle River, I think. Yes. So either or, but they seem to go to a place, maybe the castle, and later the Gaspereau River and the basin here. Could it be? I don't know. I don't know. It could. Let's have a look now in full res, high res mode. Oh, it's not better because the picture I took was from the high res. But I do believe here this is on purpose, that shape there. It's not just the hair of this gentleman on the left meeting the hair on this gentleman on the right. There's something with their eyes. They're looking at that thing in the middle in black, that they left black on purpose. So again, you're convinced, you're not convinced, I don't know. But there's something more to this black shape here. That's what I believe. So let's move on. Yeah, that's the Oak Island on the Gaspereau River in the Minas Basin by the Bay of Fundy. And again, this was in 1988. That's when the book was written. So it was already not an island anymore. And here he gives explanation. Portion of the official map of Kings County, Nova Scotia, showing the Fundy Oak Island in the mouth of the Gaspereau River. Although this land is still referred as to Oak Island, it is labeled as such on the map. It's no longer a true island. Depression, dike building filled in the tidal region between the island and the shore, making Oak Island the tip of a peninsula. But this is very interesting at the bottom. Although roads leads onto the island, we were never able to make an appointment with the local farmers in order to see whether this old Oak Island has rubble work constructions on it similar to the structures at the Cross and on the more famous Oak Island, such as the second Nolan Cross. If I was to go on this island, or what used to be an island here, the first thing I'd look for is something similar to the boulders of Nolan's Cross. And it seems from this that it's lost forever. Nobody cared. Nobody see any parallel with the Oak Island in the Atlantic south part of the Nova Scotia, and nobody cared because nobody was. Maybe they moved those rocks, making room for agriculture fields, without knowing how important they were. So maybe we'll never know. And when I look in the Rochefoucauld Grail, I can see almost the story of two islands. Is it the two islands composing our good Oak Island that were joined by the swamp, or are they really talking about two islands and a system between the two? Another interesting thing in red is the shape of our good Oak Island, reversed, mirrored, so it is looking left. And here is Oak Island in the north, and you can see, I guess you can see the similitude here. Let me unzoom a little bit, and let me take an orange pen. And I mean, doesn't it look like also like an elephant? Probably like this, I guess. It's strange, isn't it? Did they have the same shape? I don't know, but it's pretty strange. And red is the current actual contour of our good old Oak Island. Another coincidence. Okay, I'll work more on this beautiful now high-res picture, and I thank again the Rochefoucauld Grail project, and I thank Alison Stones for taking the time to send me those pictures, though I'm nobody to her, probably a weirdo from France, and and it doesn't matter, I'm lucky, I got it. So thank you so much, and thank you everyone for watching this video. Take care and talk to you soon. Bye bye.